as you can see from the numbers, it's going to be a trick this year.
Well, big cuts are coming to the city of Portland, from hundreds of jobs to street maintenance and homeless services, all to help fill the city's roughly $93 million budget gap in its general fund. Now, that is slightly less than the $100 million estimated back in January.
There aren't really any good choices here, okay? It's about where will you find the money to balance the budget that must be balanced by the end of June.
That's Portland City Administrator Michael Jordan. Today, he shared his budget recommendations, which only cover about $35 million of the shortfall. The other $57 million, well, that's up to the mayor and the city council to sort out. Here's Council President Ilana Perdolgini when I asked her about that today.
We still have a lot of hard decisions to make, though. There was a huge gap left at the end of the work that he did, and we'll need to be looking at everything to figure out what we do next. The more options we get from the bureaus and the city administrator, the better, but we will dig even beyond what they propose.
I also caught up with City Councilor Eric Zimmerman. He's the chair of the Finance Committee, and he had some strong words about these potential cuts that are now up for debate.
I mean, ultimately, I think that Portland doesn't have a budget problem. I think we have a priorities problem. When you look at that document, it's a little bit alarming that we have these types of cuts being proposed.
First thing this morning, those behind this budget proposal met with reporters for a 30-minute off-the-record sit-down to dive deep into the details of this dense budget document and to try and answer our questions. And let's just say, many of us left that meeting still murky on some of the details. But we've been working hard on this all day. Investigative reporter Evan Watson is in the wings. He'll be joining me in just a minute on the impact to public safety and other city bureaus. But first, separate from that $93 million shortfall, the city also faces potential shortfalls outside the general fund due to declining parking and utility revenues. Take a look. Here's where those gaps fall. There's an estimated $42 million gap in the Transportation Bureau, a $16 million gap in permitting and development, and a roughly $3 million gap in water and sewer, and a $23 million gap in the Parks Department. You still following me? Because I'm going to add one more layer here. Out of those gaps, the city is already anticipating $65 million in expected cuts for the next fiscal year. We'll bring those up for you now. They include a $22 million reduction from the Transportation Bureau, a $23 million reduction in the Parks Levy, $16 million from the Permitting Department, and about $4 million from both the Water and Sewer Department and internal services like city-owned vehicles. But we know one of the big concerns here, those hundreds of layoffs looming over City Hall. Earlier this month, Michael Jordan told me it's likely 120 jobs would be cut. That's no longer the case. Today, that number more than doubled. The city is now looking at eliminating 274 jobs. And that, as you can imagine, is changing the vibes inside City Hall.
Our employees at the city are entering a period of intense tension, and they don't know what's happening with their jobs as we move through this budget period. We are going to work to be as clear and as honest as we can so that our employees and the Portlanders who rely on our services every day have as much time as possible to adjust to whatever decisions we have to make.
It is worth noting some of those 274 positions are currently vacant, and that number will likely change between now and when Mayor Keith Wilson proposes his balanced budget in May. But right now, the departments facing the biggest potential cuts are Public Works, with 113 potential position reductions, mainly in the Transportation Bureau. The Community and Economic Development Department facing 88 job reductions. We're told that's because the city's permitting department has been bringing in less money. There aren't as many new projects being built downtown. And also, Vibrant Communities is facing 52 job cuts, and Public Safety is facing 5 potential cuts.
That right sizing has only happened so far at the elected level. Now it is time for it to happen at the entire city department level. So anybody knows that if you have 26 versions of HR in any business and any organization, that's probably not effective.
Probably not. Another piece to all this, though, homeless programs is something that affects everyone who lives in the city. So the city needs about $31 million to keep 8 of their homeless shelters up and running. And separate from that, if you remember earlier this year, the mayor outlined his new plan to end unsheltered homelessness, which includes opening 1,500 overnight shelter beds and 4 day centers. That comes with a price tag of $28 million. Now, we're told today that plan is being refined, and there are talks of finding ways to partially fund it. But as for that initial $31 million needed to keep the city's existing shelters running, the city says they assume the county will pay for it. But as we have been reporting all week, the county also faces their own major budget deficit, specifically in their homeless services department. So the optics of them sending money to the city aren't looking great. But I asked the county chair's office today about this. They sent me this statement saying in part, quote, Chair Vega Peterson has made it clear that shelters that are currently open must remain open. Multnomah County has and will continue to invest millions of dollars in the city's shelter sites. As we take our own, tackle our own budget shortfall, we are committed to figuring this out. Quick side note here, that $31 million the city needs is the same amount of money they give away to the county each year for homeless services as part of their intergovernmental agreement. I asked about that today, and city leaders said it's just a coincidence that is the same amount. And not to get into this too deeply here, but the city is currently in a legal battle over whether they will keep sending that money to the county or not. More to come on that for sure. But here's what the council president told me today about the uncertainty of where the shelter money will come from.
It is absolutely critical that we keep the shelters open that we currently have. There are Portlanders who are working through gaining stability, and we can't put them back out on the streets in the middle of that process.
The mayor sent us the following statement today, saying in part, quote, in the coming weeks, I'll be proposing, sharing, discussing, and negotiating a final budget. Together, we have a responsibility to faithfully explore every opportunity and reduction scenario and make decisions that reflect Portland's values and prioritize the issues we were elected to address. The office of Councilor Candace Avalos sent us the following statement, saying in part, as chair of the Homelessness and Housing Committee and member of the Finance Committee, Councilor Avalos is eager to delve deeper into the budget details, ensuring her critical policy priorities are addressed. Housing stability is fundamental to the well-being of our residents, and we must take bold steps to ensure the city keeps pace with the demand. All right, let's bring in investigative reporter Evan Watson. He was with me at this morning's news conference. Evan, talk us through the impact to city bureaus and public safety. We know that's a big one for folks.
Yeah, thank you, Blair. So this early budget proposal does not include any cuts to police, fire, 911, and Portland Street response. However, as you mentioned, Portland leaders still need to find another $57 million to balance the books. And at this point, it's hard to see where else it might come from. Plus, we talked to City Administrator Michael Jordan a little over a week ago, and even he recognized that.
It's going to be very challenging to not take any cuts in public safety and balance the general fund.
Safety cuts are currently the only big money option mentioned as another way to close the gap in the city's general fund. City Administrator Michael Jordan said he knows public safety is the community and council's top priority, so he left it alone for now, but said it's still up for discussion. The city blames falling property and business tax revenue, inflation, expiring pandemic-era funds, and overtime and healthcare costs for its budget problems. Jordan's proposed cuts include eliminating parks programs, closing a community center, and reduced repairs for roads and sidewalks. Major staffing cuts across the board are part of cost-saving measures still to be ironed out. Another option here, consolidation. Earlier, you heard City Council member Eric Zimmerman talk about right-sizing, saying the city has a lot of internal services and overlap among its workforce that could be more efficient. Jordan said the city's new form of government means city leaders should look at its workforce from an enterprise perspective, not just a bureau-by-bureau perspective, implying staffing cuts and reorganization could help fill the gap.
Because we're restructuring the city, because there's an opportunity here in the transition to look at things differently, I'm asking folks who are within those service delivery business processes to actually think about restructuring the business process.
Jordan mentioned communications, HR, IT, and finance as some examples. The budget proposal also suggests using tens of millions of dollars from the Portland Clean Energy Fund, a tax on large retailers for renewable energy projects, to help address this shortfall. You may remember last year, Mayor Wheeler made a similar move to fix budget issues, prompting criticism that these funds were being misused. Blair.
Evan Watson, thank you. Now, the city will start holding community listening sessions in March to get feedback on this budget proposal. The mayor will be releasing his proposal in May, which will then be voted on and adopted in June.
And for the very first time, we're going to hold district-based budget listening sessions.
We're going to go to the public with the kind of tipping point questions that we would really like their feedback on. What's most important to you? If we have to cut a budget, which one would you cut? Where would you tolerate a reduced service if you could, if you had to?
Okay, so you heard it there. The city wants to hear from you, and so do we. What do you think about these potential cuts and layoffs? Like Jordan said there, what services, if you had to, could you live without? Let us know. Email us at thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail 503-226-5090.